Hi, I'm Kelly and welcome to Kapowski Reads, and this is my September wrap up. So I am going to go through some fun reading stats, let you know my favourite books of September, and then let you know all about my ridiculous reading goals for October, because I have learned nothing from September and I've set yet another ridiculously unachievable TBR. Oh well. In September, I read 15 books, which works out as 5,536 pages, which kind of makes me feel like I may be back to my pre-COVID level of reading. I've at least been able to really concentrate on the books that I have been reading in September, so hopefully that's me back to normal now. If my lungs could hurry up and recover as well, that would be excellent. I had such an enjoyable reading month in September. My average rating for the entire month worked out at 3.45 stars, which is way higher than at least August and July. And I think that a really big part of that was that I had a DNF. I allowed myself to give up on a book that I was absolutely hating. And had I not given up on that book, then it would have been lucky to get 2 stars out of me. So that would have dragged my average down, and I'm really happy with my average going up. So more of that. And I think a huge part of my overall enjoyment increasing was due to going back to the genres that I enjoy the most. My most read genres were fantasy and crime. I don't know what that says about me, but that's what I like to read. I was so lucky in September and I had 4 5-star reads. Amazing. It was so hard to pick a favourite, so I haven't picked just one. Well, I have already spoken about 2 of my top reads of September, so for those books I'm just going to be super brief, and I'll link in the description the link to the videos where I talk about those books in more detail, just in case that's of interest. So first up of my 5-star reads was Plain Bad Heroines by Emily M. Danforth. I tabbed it. Never tab books. Apart from twice. I can't think of any other books that I've tabbed other than this and Other People's Clothes by Kala Henkel. This gave me similar vibes actually. That's interesting. So this book is all about a curse. Oh, in a prestigious school for girls, 2 students' lovers are found dead, and subsequently more grisly deaths occur, and a book has been written about this school, about these deaths, and a film is being made about it. And oh, it all starts to happen. It was really interesting trying to work out where the line was drawn between the actual curse, reality, and things being created for cinematic value. So that was really interesting. I loved the differing timelines. To be honest, I actually preferred the historical sections a bit more than the current day when they were making the film, but I still enjoyed those parts. I absolutely loved, I think, everything about this book. I loved the historical elements. I loved the creepy gothic chilling vibes of a haunted school. I just felt like I got everything I wanted out of this book. It was amazing. It kept me guessing right up until the end, and I highly recommend it. It is a chunky book, so it's 600. It's covered in soy sauce. It's an error on my part and I regret that. I recommend not eating sushi while trying to read a book that you love. It might end in soy sauce on a book. That's my cautionary tale. But yeah, 620 pages, so it is a chunky book, but I feel like it's completely worth devoting the time that it needed. The next book I loved was Signal to Noise by Silvia Moreno Garcia, who I love. This is another book that takes place over 2 different periods of time and surrounds a group of school friends who find out they can perform magic using records, and that was just such an interesting concept. I really enjoyed the characters in this book. I loved the danger, there are repercussions for using the magic, and it was really quite tense waiting for those repercussions to happen. And I just found I was absolutely hooked, and I just really wanted to know what was going to happen next. I absolutely loved it. This book had a wee old granny called Granny Dolores, and I love her. Now on to the two books that I adored that I haven't previously mentioned. First up is another book by Silvia Moreno Garcia. I love this author. This was my 7th book by her, 7th or 8th? 7th. And perfection. The Beautiful Ones by Silvia Moreno Garcia. This book was basically like Pride and Prejudice meets something where somebody has telekinetic powers. I cannot think of anything. Matilda. No, it wasn't like that at all, but I can't think of anything else where the main character has telekinetic powers. So that's something to think about. This book is all about Nina, who is a young girl who is being introduced to society because her family want to get her married. And she has telekinetic powers, which kind of have limited her chances of romance in the town where she lives. So she's gone off to stay with her cousin and his wife. His wife is deeply unpleasant, but absolutely stunning. She's one of the beautiful ones. And Nina meets a performer, Hector, and he makes his living on the stage using his telekinetic powers. And they start a beautiful, beautiful little romance, but Hector is hiding a secret. And if revealed, it kind of could cause absolute heartbreak for Nina. And I really enjoyed reading this book. It was so enjoyable. The secret is revealed pretty early on, so as a reader you know what it is, and you kind of go, oh yeah, that's not gonna make for good times. And so I was just sort of waiting for it to be revealed. I absolutely loved Nina, and I wanted only good things for her. She was just such an endearing character. She was so strong and like strong-willed, and she was kind, and I think that was really important because not a lot of the other main female characters were kind. They were also strong-willed, but there was a lot of a power struggle dynamic going on among them because they wanted to be sort of top socialite, whereas Nina, she was here for a good time. And I just loved her. I loved the dynamic between Nina and Hector, where they sort of brought out the best in each other. He taught her more about her powers, her abilities, how to hone them, and she basically taught him to come out of his shell. He'd been kind of hiding a secret, being very guarded, and she helped him just learn to live his life again, no longer sort of hiding in the shadow of his past. I love the sort of period era drama of this. The dating scene, the dynamics at all of the balls, there were parties galore, and you know I love a book with a ball scene. There was no ball, but there were parties, and they were so much fun to read about. There was just such an element of I didn't know what was going to happen. And I love Silvia Moreno Garcia. I've read a lot of her books, which means I know that she rarely gives me the ending I want. She gives me the ending I deserve, which sometimes makes me sad. But on the rare occasion, the ending I deserve is the ending I want. But I didn't know what direction the author was going to go in with this book. And I was so worried that it was going to go the way I didn't want. Or maybe I did want. I don't even know. But the author, oh, that ending was just... I loved this book. And my final 5-star read for September was I'm Glad My Mum Died by Jeanette McCurdy. Like what feels like everybody else on BookTube, I read this. And it feels really weird to say I loved it because one, it's a memoir. It's kind of odd or at least unusual to love somebody's life. And two, it's utterly heartbreaking and gut-wrenching and a very difficult read. This is basically her memoir about her relationship with her mum, who pushed her into being a child actor, and about her struggles with addiction, with disordered eating, and various relationship issues. And this book was not an easy read at all. There are a lot of trigger warnings, so I would recommend looking those up just before going in, because there were a lot. I had to put it down at points, but I wanted to go back to it. So it took me quite a long time to get through it. It's super short. It's only, 300 pages, and the chapters are so short, but it was a very emotional and difficult read. And I thought it was absolutely heartbreaking, and Jeanette was just so vulnerable. And I think that it was such an important book, because so often child stars are kind of put in a place where nobody's really looking out for them, and somebody needs to look out for them and make sure that they're doing okay, because Jeanette really was not. And all I want now is for Jeanette McCurdy to be good. I just want nice things to happen to her, and I want her to be happy. Or at the very least, I want her not to be sad. Unless she wants to be sad. It's her choice. But I just thought that this book was just gut-wrenching. It was just, I cried. I cried so much. But there was also a lot of dark humour in this as well, and I think that Jeanette is just such a talented performer that I feel like the dark humour was what she needed to help her get through. And I found this to be such an amazing memoir. It's one of the best memoirs I have read in a really, really long time. I definitely recommend it if it's not going to trigger you. So look after yourself first. But I think that this was such an amazing book and such an important read, and I enjoyed it, or appreciated it. I think it's probably best to say I appreciated it, because I didn't enjoy reading about her being sad, about her eating disorder. So last month I set myself some lofty reading goals. I read all but one of my intended reads for Becca's Bookopoly. The one book I didn't read was a DNF. So I think, does that count as achieving, or is it a fail because I had a DNF? Therefore I made a bad pick. I don't know. I'm going to take it as a win, because it's nice to win. And for Christie's Roll the Rainbow-thon, I read 4 books for that, and Christie had said if you just read one, it still counts as a win. So tick. I'm counting those as wins. October might not be quite as winning a month, because I am taking part in 2 different readathons. One spanning the whole month and one spanning 2 weeks. And I have tried to get some overlaps with those TBRs, but I didn't really. So I have quite a hefty TBR. My first readathon is taking place over the whole of October, and it's October Readathon, which I am doing over on Instagram. It's scary movie inspired, and I both love and hate scary films. I love some of them, like Scream, Halloween, Friday the 13th. I will watch them over and over and over. However, I will also look up spoilers so that I don't get scared by the jump scares, because I am a scaredy cat. So I love some scary films, but not all. Some of them are too scary. So for that readathon, I have 8 books. Let's go through them. For the first one, I've got Halloween, which is a book with a stalker. I'm going with Edge of the Grave by Robbie Morrison. It has sprayed edges. That's surely a good sign. For Nightmare on Elm Street, a book that will scare me. The Institute by Stephen King, because Stephen King is known for scaring people. That makes sense. I've only read one book by Stephen King before and I absolutely hated it. So second time, second chance, Mr. King. I'm sure he cares that I didn't like his previous book. For Ouija, which in my accent just sounds like I am talking about somebody from Glasgow, is a book with a paranormal or supernatural being. So I'm going with Interview with a Vampire by Anne Rice. I do not think I have ever read this before. Now's the time. For Stephen King's It, a book with a group of friends, I'm going with Frenzy Island by Richard E. Rock. I accidentally turned my camera off, so the angle might be different now. Let's continue where I somehow managed to switch off my camera. Next one is The Conjuring, based on true events. And I have maybe gone a little bit off the mark with this prompt because the book that I have chosen, I've chosen because of the true events behind this book even being in existence. And I've chosen Powers of Darkness by Valdemar Adamson. It is the lost Icelandic translation of Dracula, and I heartily recommend looking up the story behind the existence of this book, which is not Dracula. It's Dracula inspired, but it's such a fascinating story. It's one of my favourite sort of book related true stories, so I'm going with this. I'm making it work. For The Purge, which is a slasher, I have chosen The Final Girl Support Group by Grady Hendrix, who I have read 2 books by this author before and I've loved them, and I didn't realise that this was another book by them. So I'm excited. Friday the 13th, it's a remote setting and I couldn't have a Halloween themed reading TBR without having Carmilla on it by Sheridan Le Fanu. I love this book and I was going to read it in October as a reread anyway. The last book for this TBR is based on Scream, so a murder mystery, and I've gone with Cutthroat Cupcakes by Kate Lawley, and I just kind of wanted something that maybe wasn't going to be super scary, and I'm hopeful based on the cover that this is going to be delightful, so wish me luck with those. And for my other TBR, I am taking part in the Autumn Mixtape Readathon, which is happening over on YouTube, and I will pop links in the description to the creators. And this is a 5-book TBR, which is far more reasonable because this readathon is taking place over 2 weeks. And my plan at this exact moment in time is that I'm going to vlog these 5 books in a reading vlog for that challenge. But who knows what's going to happen between now and then. So maybe it'll happen, maybe it won't. Maybe I will spend all of October just making soup and knitting socks because that's what my heart wants. But I do have books for this readathon anyway. So the books are Book with Nature on the cover. I am going with The Hex Appeal by Kate Johnson. For a witchy book or woman in total control of herself, I'm going with Blackwater Sister by Zan Cho. For free pick / my favourite autumnal song, I'm terrible for not listening to any music that came out after 2009. So my favourite autumnal song is probably Grand Theft Autumn by Fall Out Boy. It's got autumn in the title. Does that count? I think it does. So again, I've kind of stretched that to a disappearing boy and kind of twisted that to make it The Girls Who Disappeared by Claire Douglas. It's a stretch, I know, but it's also a free pick. So if anybody's not okay with me choosing that song as the inspiration behind this pick, then free square. It's my get out of book jail free card. For unseasonal read, I'm going with The Snow Child, which I have been meaning to read for about 2 years. Or maybe 1 year. I don't know. I don't even remember. I got it at Book Swap ages ago and I put it aside to read when it was cold and I didn't read it. It's by Owen Ivy. And for a translated book, I'm going with Powers of Darkness. It's the only book I've managed to get on both of my TBRs, and it was translated from Icelandic into English. So that's my translated pick. And that makes 12 books, which feels very, very achievable. Unless I've counted wrong. And there are some other books for reading groups that I want to read in October. I've already started them, so they're not like a full read. First is There's Only One Danny Garvey by David F. Ross, which is the Scottish Book Club pick for the last couple of months, and I'm really not far into it. I'll get there. And the next one I want to finish is Marple, which is by multiple authors. I've taken the dust jacket off because I'm currently reading it. I have been reading one story after every other book that I finish. So I should have this finished in time, maybe. I'll have to read it more often than that, but it'll get done. In addition to those books, I've also got rereads of my favourite spooky classics that I want to get through, and I've received 2 pre-orders in the last week that I want to read. But there's only 31 days in October. I can't get through that many books, but I'm gonna have a good time trying. Wish me luck. I would love to know what you have read in September and what you plan on reading in October. I'm off to go and make soup now because it's soup weather. Thanks for watching. Bye!